Good afternoon from South Bend, Indiana. I'm here with Vern Mehler with the Sun Bucket solar water heater system. We had a really good chat via Zoom about 2 or 3 months ago. Graciously, Vern's allowed me into his home to talk about the Sun Bucket, the origins of it, the purpose behind it, and anything else that he'd be willing to share. Just in general, what led you to solar energy in any way, shape, or form? When did you first discover it?
Years and years ago, my wife and I took a vacation to escape the kids. I've got 7 kids. So we needed to do that. And we went to the Caribbean. And we went to St. Martin's, which is a nice build-up tropical vacation, etc. But right next to St. Martin's, there's another island called Anguilla. And Anguilla at the time was more country or primitive, whereas St. Martin's was built up and westernized, etc. Anyway, we took a day trip over there, which was like 4 hours. I got to talking to the gal who ran the day trip, and his HR. She says, when you wash dishes in Anguilla, you got cold water you have to wash dishes in, and the detergent doesn't suds up. It's hard to get the dishes clean, and then once you've done scrubbing them in the uncomfortable cold water, you got to dry them. And you can't dry in cold water easily because the water vapor sticks to the why don't you have hot water? She says, well, electricity is very expensive, which it is in the islands. Well, they pay about 3 times what we do.
Wow. And
propane is very expensive. They pay about 3 or 4 times what we do, simply because of travel, transportation. So I asked the simple question, why not solar? And she said, it's too expensive. They could never afford that. And I said, well, it can't be that expensive, can it? And she said, oh yeah, it's $3,000–4,000 for a solar system. You got to have, and she's talking about the big collectors on the rooftop and the storage tank and the pumps and the yada 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 yada. Big commercial system. And I said, well, it can't be all that hard. And then I mentioned I did know about the little solar shower thingy.
Sure.
And I said, how about that? And she said, oh, those, they're too cheap. She said, you buy them, and they're like, I guess they were like $12–14 at the time. No, they're more than that now. But she said they fall apart too quick. I said, wow, this can't be a big deal. I'm an engineer. I can knock this puppy out in 5 seconds flat. So I got back to the States and I started screwing around. And the first thing I discovered was, well, there's some really good reasons why this wasn't done before. This is not as easy as it looks. So, and pretty soon I had this really weird idea, which didn't fit the way most people do it, but it did work. And that brought me from one thing to another. Let's talk about a couple things. Okay. First of all, before we talk about the sun dome, let's talk about the way everybody else does it.
Okay.
People like flat plates. I don't. And there's some really good reasons I don't like flat plates. Let's assume this is a flat plate collector. Okay? And let's assume it's sitting at an angle on a roof, just for the heck of it. Or let's say it's sitting down like that. Let's look at the sun. Okay, this is, I live right close to, you're about a mile south of the Michigan-Indiana border.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a long ways north.
Yes.
Okay, let's take summertime conditions. That's north, that's south, east, west. Summertime condition, let's say summer solstice, okay? Really long days, okay? Sun is up at 5 o'clock in the morning, doesn't really go to bed until 10 o'clock at night. Sun rises way up here, northeast, goes all the way back over at noontime. It's still on the south side, perpendicular, goes all the way back over here, sets in the northwest, okay? Sunlight's coming in at an angle like this, coming in at an angle like this, coming in at an angle like this. Okay. If you're on a roof like this, the back picks up nothing, okay, because the roof's there. So this is worthless until the sun gets over to here. You're not picking up any heat at all. At high noon, you're picking up heat, and then it goes back over here and it falls apart. That's the good winter, okay? Sun up here rises in the southeast, barely gets above the horizon, like about here, and then sets over here in the southwest. This is a pretty good angle for that in the winter, but not in the summer.
No.
And it's a great mathematical experiment that says, well, this is the best way to do it. Flat plate is better than something up and down. I disagree with that. It's 17% better, assuming you live at the equator and the sun comes straight up, you get solar noon and comes down. If you don't and you live where I live, this is bad. So, what do? Let's take a dome like this. Sunlight comes in northeast, it hits this side. It goes up over here, it hits this side. High noon, it's hitting this side, here and here. Wintertime, here, here, and here. No matter where the sun is in the sky, you've got at least half the face that's exposed to sunlight. And if you get up into here, you have over half. So, completely self-aligning. You don't have to adjust anything. You just fill it with water, set it in the flat on the ground, and walk away. You fill it with water, pours in here. Now, it looks like this is the bottom, which looks stupid. It's like, why would you fill this up and then make a dome dish here? You could have just made this solid. Well, that's fine, but solar water heaters work off the surface area to volume ratio. The more water you have, the more heat you need to put into it. The less water, the less heat. Okay? So this kind of balances it out. This is pretty much set for 80% of the possible heat within 4 to 5 hours. Mm-hmm. That's a fast response time.
Sure.
Okay. If you looked at it in cross section, you would have this. Well, you can see this. The volume of water in here is 2 liters, which is a pretty fair amount of water. You know.
Yep.
For whatever you want to do. And it's got a fast response time. Like I said, 80% of maximum temperature within,
sure,
4 or 5 hours. Mm-hmm. You put the cap on it. I should mention this. You put the cap on, it just snaps into place. The water's in place. Yep. This is actually polypropylene ultraviolet resistance. It's very hard. Later on, I'll take you out and I'll show you one. We have one. It's been sitting in my backyard for 3 years.
Okay.
Summer, winter, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, around the clock. It's frozen. It's thawed. It's been hailed on everything to known mankind, and it's still sitting out there with water in it.
Sure.
It's hardy. Anyway, this particular unit will do hot water pretty easy. Typically, what it does, take whatever air temperature you've got at 50 degrees, and that's about what this one will do. So if you've got 70-degree day, which is kind of typical, you get 120-degree water. 120-degree water is basically the same temperature as water coming out of your hot water faucet at home. That's what they typically set on that.
Sure.
Okay. This water is really great for, actually 120 degrees will kill parasites. But you can't really claim that. We'll get to that later.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, this is basically water for washing dishes, cleaning clothes, you know, whatever you want to use, general use hot water for. Washing your hands, whatever. Okay. If you want hot water and you want to pasteurize water, you need, actually they say 150 degrees will do it for 5 minutes. But you can, parasites, bacteria, viruses, they all die early on. You know, about 150 degrees for 5 minutes and you've killed them.
Yeah.
Okay. If you take this is very tough. It's polycarbonate, same thing they use on basketball goals, same material they use on skylights in houses. And all it is a dome. You just put it over there and walk away with the water in it. This drives the temperature up. The temperature goes up to about 100 degrees above air temperature.
Okay.
So if you got a 70 degree day, you've got a 170 degree temperature. Rule of thumb.
Sure.
And you got to be fair about this. Solar heating is horseshoes and hand grenades. How many clouds are in the sky? How much wind do you have? How much yada yada yada. When I say about, it's about.
Sure.
Because you got to throw all that into effect.
Yeah.
That is pretty much how the basic unit works. The real problem you've got with this stuff is you've got to know how hot your water gets. Okay, because let's say you got a real sunshiny morning, the water gets to 180 degrees, 170, 60 something, okay, and it cools down, okay. Well, by the time you get back to it, so you don't get back till 8 o'clock at night, it's cool.
Yeah.
So how do you know? Well, luckily, there's a lot of people that make these.
Sure.
This is a wipey. It's a water purification indicator. And basically what this is, incidentally, we don't make these. You can buy them off the shelf on eBay or at North Star. What you've got is, this is a little plastic tube, and it's got a little piece of fishing line.
Filament. Sure.
Okay. What you do is you hold this. The fishing line pulls from one end to the other through the hoses. So if you look at it, you see the white there?
Right.
That's actually a wax. And the wax melts at 149 degrees. Okay. And 149 degrees for 5 minutes pasteurizes water. So you take this, put it in here, close the lid, put your water in with it, cover it up, it gets hot. You come back later on at 8 o'clock at night, you open this up, pull it out, and the wax on the top is melted and goes down to the bottom. That means you've made 149 degrees, water is pasteurized.
Should mention, when you tuck it in here, it would go below the surface of the water. Right?
Yeah,
It would
yeah.
not, yeah, yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you fill this all the way up to the top.
And then
too.
yeah.
Yeah, so
You just
you almost
dump it in.
have to fill it.
Yes.
Yeah. So that works pretty good. This is what I've done so far. And right now I'm talking to people to send them to Africa and to Mexico and South America, the actual developing world countries, to test them and see what we've got. It's really not even expensive. I mean, if you look at what you got, it's not that bad.
Sure.
Anyway, let's talk, that's what I've done.
Sure. I could go back quickly to the cutout, because I think the thing some people might be asking is, you talked about surface area, but here's the surface area getting the heat, getting the sun's energy, transferring it to the water. But then the concavity, of course, as you alluded to, why not make it all the way around? Because there's all, you'd get way more water that you could heat up.
And it won't get hot.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned it so much, it would just take forever. But this width, what this reminds me of is the tubes of mineral oil that are in the Arliss Walters cooker, where it's literally just copper tubes of mineral oil that are all connected and then go up into a cooking tray area covered with glass, and it'll hit consistently. It's in the 250 to 280 range on almost any day. And the first thing he said was, just point it toward noon, because the pipes are far enough apart where the sun will gather that much, and it'll be. But he didn't explain why this is critical, the actual shape. And I know we went over it on the phone, but if you could review that, the fact that how far does the heat go down into the water?
Say the sun's out here someplace. Here it hits and it strikes the surface perpendicular. Here and here it hits and it hits the surface tangential. That means projected area here on the tangential, the amount of energy hitting the surface is almost zero. So there's no heating here. Here, it's directly perpendicular. That's high intensity energy. That's the maximum heating occurs here. So what you got is non-uniform heating. Now the total energy is the same. If this was a flat plate and it had the same area as this, the total energy is the same. But with this one, the total energy, it's the same, but here it's hot, here it's cool. Well, thermal siphons operate off of temperature. So the hotter water here rises to the very surface. Intermediate goes here, and here it just stays at this side. So it rises up here, goes to the top, stays there, displaces the cold water. Cold water comes down and goes back around and makes a circle again. But it's not really amplification, but it's selective energy. So this gets hotter than a flat plate would, because perpendicular goes, hottest water goes to the very top. And it keeps going like that.
Yep. And you wouldn't be able to get that if this was all one big volume. And the thinness, it's like that's the maximum distance between the surface that's heated and where it's contained, right?
Yes.
For that amount of volume to be heated up.
That's why this is more efficient. This one absorbs 100% of the infrared and visible light coming from the sun. And if you put this on it, the plastic drives deeper into the infrared zone. Mm-hmm. So it's probably like 80% of the total energy. You only lose 20% because of the plastic.
Well, and you answered the one question, of course, is the material choices, at least for the kind of the heat trap and the transparency of this. Though polypropylene, how did you come up with a choice for that as a material?
Polypropylene is a high temperature plastic. There was a plating line I was working on which was boiling hot water, and they used polypropylene. Polypropylene is 350 degrees boiling, melting, softening temperature, something like that. So it's way up the scale. High density polyethylene almost works, but not quite. It deforms. I'll show you some stuff in a minute that you can see the difference. Tell you what, let's go a little farther. Let's talk about what I want to build. Okay, this is really good, and for basic water, it's probably, basic water and pasteurizing water, it's probably the best thing on the market right now. It has one big problem. And it is the same problem that almost all the solar cookers and all the water heaters and everything else in the entire world has. It doesn't have thermal insulation. Thermal insulation is the magic bullet by which you can do all kinds of stuff. If you can keep it from cooling down so that when the clouds come into the sky and cover up your solar, it doesn't cool down, you got something going on. Okay, let's look at this. Same thing, okay? Only let's build it a little differently. let's make the hole about this big around, okay? And instead of this here being round like this, let's take this and make it come up so it's about this tall at the top, okay? And then instead of having a lip like this, let's do something different. You've got this, okay? Let's make this one piece so that this and this are all black and all polypropylene, okay? And then I talked about the center and the little gap, okay? Now, let's cut out the lid on top so that you could fill this with water. And you could fill it up to here, or you can fill it down to here, it doesn't matter, okay? Let's do something else. Then let's take a bain-marie like this, stainless steel. Buy them on eBay for all kinds of sizes, for anywhere from like $7 to $12, whatever. Let's assume this fits inside here and sets on that base, okay? Then let's take this, which is basically a styrofoam bucket, and slip it over the top. So this is all insulated. What you get now is, this is bigger, okay? So this is out of size.
And this reaches the lip of where the water is
It
transferring
reaches
up to the top.
here.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So it's still getting all the sun.
So sunlight shines on this, sunlight heats up. Hot water rises, This is filled with water. This is filled with potatoes, meat, green beans, whatever, food, okay? Hot water rises, hot water transfers, the heat transfers into the food, but the insulation keeps it there. The food cools the water down, water comes back, makes the trip down here to the bottom, makes a circle again, and it becomes a self-contained circulating system.
Sure.
No valves, no moving parts, no computer, no electricity, no batteries. It just works.
And are you working on a prototype for that?
I have drawings. I have several.
Okay, drawings, but not built yet, because this is not easy to. You can't just go down to a plastic shop and say, "Hey, make me one of these exact specifications." Right?
No, you need about $80,000 for a mold,
sure.
and
Yeah.
I'm not prepared to put that kind of money into this.
Sure.
I've already spent way more than
Yeah,
I wanted to.
Yeah. What would a possibility be to fabricate it with like metal and pop rivets and silicone? I don't know. Just something
And you'd be surprised. Water goes through everything.
Yeah.
Keeping water
Oh,
in place is a huge problem.
Yeah.
The easiest way to do this, actually, this was made by, this was made by one process, okay? Blow molding. The other one I want to build will have to be made by rotary molding. Different process,
Oh, sure.
okay? But you have to do it one piece and put it together. There's just no way to do it otherwise.
Sure.
I've tried. And even the little things where you do the rotary, they can't take the heat and they just collapse. Yeah. And this thing with the insulation added, you can get to 180, 190 degrees without much trouble at all.
Sure. So crock pot.
It's almost identical to a crock pot, just like you have in your kitchen,
Mhm.
except it's solar powered.
Sure.
And you can cook food with it. You can obviously heat water with it. And if you kept this basic design and brought in copper tubes up from the bottom and rotated in a heat exchanger,
Sure.
you can make a pretty good residential size heater, because you could build these in something about this big, and then you buy in one piece. It's like an RV. Instead of stick building a house,
Sure.
you buy a mobile home and you build them like popcorn, and they're cheap. You hook them up in series, run them across your roof for whatever size you need. You need 10 of them? Fine. You only need 5? Fine. It adapts, adjusts easily to the house.
Sure.
But it doesn't have the big multi-component installation and expense. And it works.
Mhm.
Uh,
Cool.
But
Yeah.
I haven't built it yet.
No, but by extension, yeah. So it's I find this true of a lot of those that have designed solar cookers is what else can I do with it, and how can I expand it, or how can I make it more efficient? And you've come up with basically two different uses or with the same basic principles. Yeah.
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 And it'll cook food, it'll heat water, and it can be expanded in size
Sure.
to large scale residential heating.
Yeah. Sure.
Anyway, that's my story.
Okay.
This is one of the, after I finished with the stuff we just saw, this is one of the first ones I did. Plastic tubes, insulated bucket. This one actually worked pretty good, except that as you heat the water, all the dissolved air in the water comes out as bubbles. And when the gas comes out as bubbles, the bubbles line up along the tube and they stop the flow. The thermal siphon stops because there's too much air gap holding it back. So that one failed. This is another early bucket model. It failed. This one is one of the early bucket models, which was a very similar design except similar, and it used a valve. This one actually was the prototype for the one we built a few of. This is the next generation of the same thing, next generation of the same thing. This one is cool. This is stainless steel.
Okay.
It's black. It's black chrome. Black chrome is a solar selective surface. It absorbs 100% of the sunlight, but it doesn't reflect and emit thermal energy. So it gives it a natural improvement in efficiency. It's really good and it worked well, but it's too expensive.
Stainless steel and metal work. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has to be plated, so it has disadvantages. This is one that we actually almost made.
Wow.
This one's modified with a test for a evacuated tube. That didn't work, but the original valve did work. This one was fine until the guy that was making them, he said he could make them, but he couldn't. And then he went out of business, so everything went up the tubes. This is another one of the same variety. This is the one I did the testing with. You can see.
Yeah.
You see how it comes up here? What I did with this was I just put a bucket here, and the bottom of it, the water heated the bottom of the bucket only, and I put a styrofoam bucket over the top. That worked. This one worked really good, except you can see it. See how it kind of deformed?
Started to pucker, yeah. Yeah.
That's because the plastic couldn't take the temperature. The weight of the water pushed it out, and it deformed badly. But before it deformed badly, it worked really well.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
that gives you an idea of what I got?
Yeah. I really appreciate it.
Good. Anytime. I'm glad you came.